Okay, this was originally intended to be a graphic settings test video where I go over all the DLSS settings, the ray tracing settings, look at optimizing settings if needed, because the graphics settings in this game apparently are supposed to be pretty beefy, with the recommended system requirements being an RTX 2080 for 1080p high settings, 60 frames per second if you look at the recommended system settings. Now I'm on an RTX 2070, which is a bit below that. I'm playing at 1440p. I'll show you that. And I'm also on an i5-9600K CPU when the recommended one is an i9-9900K CPU. So I'm a bit below the system requirements, at least the recommended ones. So I thought, you know, let's see what it's like to run the game at Ultra with ray tracing on. Now, one thing you'll notice is that there's no DLSS option here. And apparently there's supposed to be. This game is supposed to have DLSS. And I've looked, and online, some other people are having this issue, but apparently not everybody. So I don't know what exactly is going on. I'm on the latest NVIDIA driver. I don't see a DLSS option in the graphics menu. If you go down to DX11, it just grays out ray tracing as an option. And speaking of ray tracing, I can turn it off and on, but I don't notice any visual or performance difference at all, which tells me that something is broken in this game at launch. Let me show you what I mean here. So look at this scene, and you can see that my frame rate right here is 62 frames per second. As the robot walks by, we might get fluctuations of 1 or 2, but that's it. Now, let's go ahead here and turn off ray tracing. And you'll notice now that I am getting exactly the same frames per second, and if you look around, there does not appear to be any visual difference. And if you're like, well, maybe you need to restart the game. I tried that. I've loaded into the game with ray tracing on and with ray tracing off, and in DX11 and in DX12, and I have seen no visual or performance difference. So something is broken with the ray tracing settings. Now, some good news, by the way, is that the game, I'm gonna assume, by the way, that ray tracing is off right now, because even though I have it set on, again, no visual performance difference, I'm gonna assume that this is the visuals with ray tracing off, and that it's just broken for some reason right now for some people. And I would say, again, the good news is that the game still looks really good, in my opinion. I mean, I know this top-down view style thing isn't for everybody. It's not everybody's type of thing. But by the way, you get a closer-up view if you go and talk to a character or something. And honestly, I think the graphics look really great. So if it turns out that for some reason right now I can't play the game with ray tracing, I think the game looks great without it. Also, the performance, again, at whatever settings these seem to be, which it seems to be completely ultra settings without ray tracing working, even though I have ray tracing turned on, once again. It does seem like my system, which is below the recommended requirements even just for 1080p, does seem to, at least in these initial opening stages of the game, does seem to be maintaining well above a 60 frame per second average, which is great. Here's the first little combat scene in the game, and even in combat, I do appear to be maintaining 60 frames per second. So, I would say that at least without ray tracing, which again is probably what's going on here, the game does seem to perform pretty well on my system, which is, again, running at 1440p and below the recommendations, which leads me to believe that the recommendations were for ray tracing, and that for some reason ray tracing isn't working. Now, I've seen people online who seem to be playing the game with ray tracing and with DLSS. It even seemed to have an ultra quality DLSS setting, which seems to be the first game I've seen to set that. At least I've seen a video with somebody who seemed to have that setting available. I just don't. So I don't know what exactly is going on with that, but this does appear to be the case. All right, guys, let me know if this is working for you. Do you have those settings available to you? Does DLSS show up? Remember, you should have to have an RTX card for DLSS. I have an RTX 2070. So if you're on an RTX card and DLSS is showing up for you, can you tell me what's going on? I'm on the Game Pass version of the game, but I went over to the Steam forums, and some people over there seem to be reporting the same issue. So I don't know if maybe they were on the Game Pass version and just talking on the Steam forums, or if there's something else going on. let me know, guys. I'd really like to figure out what is going on here. Overall, this game seems like it's going to be pretty fun, and I might actually play it other than just graphics testing it. I hope all of you guys have an excellent day and expect a follow-up video if I figure out a solution to this thing. How do I turn off the recording? There it is.